everybody. I'm also very happy to welcome Madhumita, the entrepreneur that the Chennai Angels has funded. And disclosure, I am an investor in that company. So if I'm showing any partiality or bias, you can understand my investor fondness comes from there. Okay. So without further ado, let me start sharing the screen. We have a pretty busy time. I'm going to take some 25 minutes to 30 minutes to explain to you something about what Priya already outlined, which is the difference between an idea and opportunity. Okay, so this is what it is. What's the difference between an idea and an opportunity? I will not go too much into detail on your audience, your USP and your comparison with your competitors, but we'll delve into it as I'm talking about assessment of opportunities. Okay. And after that, I will hand it over to Madhumita to walk for her to walk through the journey of the Indus Valley, where it started, where it is now, and how they have evolved. And then we'll wrap up in the last 5 minutes. We are hoping all this should take between 45 to 50 minutes. And in between, if you have questions, please feel free to use the chat, and we'll try and answer them hopefully during the session or at the end of the session. So without further ado, first, I wish we had this in person. I would have reveled coming into the audience and asking you this and jumping around in your midst. But which are the product service ideas you wish you had come up with? Give me some Indian examples. And why did you like these ideas? And what did you like about them? If you can put it in the chat box, so we can continue with the conversation. I put down 3 because we don't have time too much and I can't see all your faces, etc. I'm so sorry about that, so I wish I could see your reactions, etc. But if you have any thoughts and ideas, please feel free to put it on the chat. I've come up with 3 of them. And I've also put some numbers, just because I like numbers. So one is Paytm. A lot of us have heard about Paytm. It was till recently the most valued startup in India. I think Byju's has overtaken it, and Paytm has intention to overtake it again. So this is Paytm, started by Vijay Kumar Sharma, which is an interesting idea, pretty different for that time. The second, which I've taken, is an FMCG product, Hector Beverages, known as the maker of Paper Boat. So that's a company which is again growing pretty fast. In 2 years' time, it's kind of doubled its revenues. I've also put some indicative numbers of loss in the bracket. And the third one, which has been one of our saviors, inverted comma saviors, in the pandemic time, along with folks like Dunzo, Zomato, etc. You can see how impressively it's scaled up in terms of revenues. It's also impressively scaled up in terms of losses. That's a different matter. But hopefully there'll be deliverance for its investors and for the entrepreneurs in the near future. Now, these 3 are very interesting ideas, very different ideas, and one will wonder how they came up with it and how it evolved. So just think about, probably when you see some interesting thoughts and concepts and ideas and businesses, one is, of course, how they got valued. We'll not get into that. That's always $1 million, nowadays $1 billion or a $10 billion question. But figure out how exactly they kind of created from an idea to an opportunity and then fleshed it out and evolved their business model over time. So if you look at it, the stages of entrepreneurship are very simple in that sense. There is an idea, which is the spark. And then you go and check the feasibility of the idea and see, okay, can I prove the concept? And, are there people who are willing to really bite this idea that I have? Once you do that, hopefully you can scale up from pilot to commercial, from pilot to commercial, and commercial to scaling up. Hopefully you'll become a big success. Somewhere, if you require, maybe there will be some sugar daddies giving you funding, etc. But otherwise, you can self-fund yourself and still be a great success. Zerodha is a good example of it, and there is Zoho also closer home. So there are enough examples in India of people who have scaled up without external funding. So this is broadly it. But today our focus is these 2 areas predominantly, which is idea, checking the feasibility, and proving the concept. That's really where our focus is today. The rest of it is not so much in the ambit of today's discussion. We may have further sessions as we go along in Startup SIG. So if you look at, therefore, the life cycle of a startup, for most of us, this valley of death is crucial. This is where, an idea can either go from being a hero, from a zero to a hero, or it can be completely negative. So this is the key part we are talking about, which is, well, how do I figure out what idea I have has legs, and how do I check the feasibility and get into a market validation mode? Once you reach here, you're on your path to scaling up. So this is the path that we are going to traverse today and figure it out. The questions you want to ask yourself are, first and foremost, do I want to be in this business? Number two, is this business feasible? And do others believe in this? And third is, how do I validate it? Once you find a validation and you're getting early traction and people are willing to pay you some money and you're building out the team, then it's a question of only reworking the model, figuring out, how to improve the value proposition, etc., etc. So this is really the coverage for today's session. Now, as an investor, Mike is also part of Chennai Angels, and I'm pretty sure there must be a couple of other investors. Imagine you're going to make a pitch to an investor. These are the questions that you will be repeatedly asked. And these questions are ad nauseum. Okay, I mean, they keep repeating themselves. That's why I'm saying ad nauseum. What is the problem you're trying to solve? Why is it a problem? Second, how is it being solved now? And what's wrong with the way it's being solved? Third, how are you going to solve the problem? And how is this superior to existing alternatives? Why will customers choose you over the alternatives? Fifth, how defensible is it, in terms of IP, brand, other moats? For those of you who don't know this word moat, in the good old days when there is a fort, a kote, there is a little thingy of water around it. That's the moat. Basically, you prevent others from breaching your fort. Then sixth, how will you make money? Revenue model, and that too repeatedly. And finally, which is, why are you the best guy to solve it? It may be there is a fantastic problem to solve. It may be that the solution is good, but you may not be the best person to solve it. So all these things will come into play as you evolve from an idea to an opportunity and then to a business. So please keep these questions in mind and see how you can answer these questions, because these are hard questions that will come up repeatedly. Why? At the end of the day, you need to be able to defend your idea, defend what you have created, and show to people and to yourself that there is an attractive opportunity out there. But unfortunately, the real world, you find all these kinds of things happening. And this is a Dilbert cartoon. I just loved it, which is why I put it here, which is how many people come up with thinking that they have great ideas, but they want some other people to do all the work. And that's what, unfortunately, they get exposed. So this is not what we want you to be. We think that you are capable of doing so much more. And this is why I put this cartoon, as a kind of a reality check. So if you look at it, what is a business idea? At the beginning, it's kind of sometimes just a fancy, some kind of an impression, some kind of thing which is maybe, you had a little bit of a pain and you say, look, somebody has got to do something about it. So this is all it is. But if you want to convert this idea into something concrete, the first thing is it has to create or add value to somebody. Typically, somebody is willing to pay for it. Secondly, it should solve a significant problem, remove some pain from somebody, or help in meeting a demand for something. Okay. Like, for example, if I take Uber, I like to use that example. What is Uber's proposition in the beginning? If you were to condense it into one line, on the one side, you had people who were requiring personal transportation on tap. On the other side, you had a bunch of people who had vehicles that were barely being used and wanted to make better use of them by being driver partners or whatever it is. So basically, what did Uber do? Real-time matching of the demand and supply for personal transportation. So that's the significant problem which they faced in San Francisco, where the other alternative was only the yellow taxi, which was very often not available or very difficult to get. And, behavior of those guys was sometimes odd, etc. The third thing that you need to do is, will it have a large market opportunity, and is there a potential to make profits, etc. And finally, very importantly, this is what many people will look at is there a fit with the key team and the founders and the timing too should be right. When all this kind of match together, then you can say that the idea has the scope to become a real opportunity. So if you look at it, a lot of things are colliding, and one is basically your education, which means, and then your experience. There could be personal experience, there could be work experience. Both this experience and education together gives you prior knowledge of markets and customer problems. When entrepreneurial alertness understands this and finds the gap, okay, you also need networks. Many times it's not what you know, it's who you know that matters more. So when all these kind of collide, education with experience, with entrepreneurial alertness, and the connections and networks, there is a chance that you are recognizing the opportunity much better, and your ability to execute on your idea will be significantly enhanced. So I hope you're able to get something, what I'm saying so far. We have started at about 6 and I'm at 6:13. So if there are any questions, feel free to put it on the chat. Otherwise, I'll so that I know that I'm making sense. Now, looking at ideas. Now, there are multiple ways you can get ideas. For example, you take Phanindra Sama, founder of Redbus. All this creation of Redbus was through a personal incident. He was always having to go to Hyderabad on weekends to see his people, and he was in Bangalore. And he was always finding it impossible to get a bus ticket. And he said, very difficult to get a bus ticket at the time that you want it. And on the one side, there seem to be transporters who seem to have capacity, but we don't know about it. On the other side, there are customers who are not able to figure out where exactly to get tickets, and all that. So this is how it started off. He thought it was a technology problem, but soon realized it was much, much more than that. And that's how, the Redbus evolved. The second fellow is the founder of Zoom. Now, many of you may know or may not know that the Zoom founder, he's a Chinese guy who migrated to the US. He tried 8 times to get a visa, did not succeed. On the 9th time, he succeeded and managed to go to the US, knew very little English, managed to get a job in WebEx. Cisco is later acquired WebEx. When he was in WebEx, he was very unhappy with how WebEx was. And he found that a lot of users had a lot of challenges on using WebEx and its clunkiness. And even many years later, it's the code that he wrote that they were still using. Finally, in 2011, he quit WebEx and he said, there is a better way. And he somehow managed to convince 1 or 2 interesting angel investors to invest in the company, including an ex-Cisco guy. And today, Zoom is the company which is really one of the companies which has taken full advantage of the pandemic and gone completely, it's gone places. There are 2 other fellows that we have here, Freshdesk, which is now called Freshworks, but it started off as a side project. I think Girish and Shan, when they were in AdventNet, part of Zoho, or became Zoho later, they found that there are issues with the help desk support, and they started a side project and they quit, and then they made this company. Instagram actually was this guy's side project. I think, was he in YouTube? I'm not very sure. But he started off by putting images of whiskey. And he found great traction. A lot of people enjoyed these pictures of whiskeys. Then he realized that this idea actually could have potentially some legs. And he left that company and started off Instagram. So this was a side project. Or, people like Apple and Microsoft, both Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, are fellows who say, I have no problem in shamelessly imitating somebody and improving upon them. Now, these are fellows, and Jobs is one guy who's actually taken bits and pieces from very many companies like Xerox and many others and put it together and made a much superior product, and of course, improved upon the idea radically. So there are very many different ways to get ideas. And I think this is just a very basic tip of the iceberg. And blink, if you can, in the blink of an eye, you can get superior ideas much better than anybody else. Now, what you can do is, when you have something like this, how do you shortlist ideas? Now, there are tools like the idea validation matrix. I'm not showing it to you right now because it's a 2-page sheet or 3-page sheet. But if you want, I feel one of the things which is lacking in many Indian entrepreneurs compared to maybe a Western entrepreneur or maybe even a Japanese or whatever, is the fact that we don't have this rigor and discipline. We do too much jugad. And I think while that is good, I feel that for us to become better and to become really world class, it's nice to have a systemic innovation and systemic process for idea validation and product development. So this is a tool that you can use. There are many formats of this, but this is something that you can figure out and start using them. Now, I have used one particular, the next 3-4 slides, I'm going to show you how IBM has something called a business opportunity statement. I will flesh it out a bit for you and I will show you an Indian example. Okay. So if you take the business opportunity statement that IBM has created, IBM says, we will improve the experience of, and then you must provide an explanation saying what problem needs solving or improvement. Okay. For, and then that is basically which person or who's the person. Your definition of this customer or that segment or that niche needs to become very clear out here. Many of us tend to say, I will attack the BFSI segment, the banking, financials, and services, financial services industry. That's very huge. Many times that business, like if you take the healthcare industry in the US, it's $3 trillion. You can't say I will attack the healthcare segment, the industry. You have to be more specific, far more specific. The user struggles today because then you mention some of the pain points for that particular problem and that particular customer. And finally, solving this will be good for our business because that's where the motivation of the entrepreneur comes. What is it that is going to help him or his business or her and her business because they solve this problem? Sorry. So, for example, if you were to take a statement like, we will improve the experience of interacting with the US government, the central government. Oh, today, nowadays, we can't say central government. We must say union government, according to some people. Anyway, we will improve the experience of interacting with the US federal government. Well, it's too broad. Federal government is huge and problems are aplenty. Or we will improve the experience of interacting with an automated chatbot by using cognitive search to look up tax records. It's too specific, includes only one solution and it prevents thinking of better opportunities. Now you take the third statement, that is, we will improve the experience of getting the right income tax forms from the federal government. This is kind of like Goldilocks and the various 3 cups of porridge. And the third porridge cup turns out to be just the right temperature, neither too hot nor too cold. Here, what tasks are involved. It's one type of interaction with a crucial department, which many people have problems with, whether it's in India or anywhere in the world or in the US, and it can have multiple solutions. Okay. So then you say, for whom are you going to do it? Are you doing it for a citizen who is looking for information? Are you helping an internal government employee who is looking for information and wanting to do his job better? Or are you improving the experience for current taxpayers on customers or for potentially new taxpayers? So once you zero in on who you're planning to attack, the solution starts getting a little better, because I love this line. In the problem lies the answer. The better you're able to define your problem, the more you're able to arrive at a better answer. So that's really where I think all of us need to focus. So what is it that the user struggles? Where is it the user struggles today? What are the kind of problems they have? How do you know that they have these problems? Or just because you have some software, you say that, look, because I have the software, I think they have a problem. This is what is called that when you have a hammer, everything begins to look like a nail. I've seen this happen even in medicine. If you have a slight situation which looks like it may be a heart problem, you go to a cardiologist, he might recommend a stent. You go to a cardiothoracic surgeon, he might recommend open heart surgery. Okay, because that's what they know better. No disrespect to doctors, by the way. I'm saying all this more as examples. The key, I think, is for us to remember that if I help my users solve their problems and achieve their goals, I am able to achieve my business goals. So if I were to now condense it and put it into one opportunity statement, we will improve the experience of getting the right income tax forms from the government for non-tax savvy individuals looking to file personal returns. Why? Because the user struggles today, because getting the right form and finding the right form requires knowing tax codes, form numbers, and getting simple to understand answers to simply stated questions is near impossible. Solving this will be good for that is IBM's business, because IRS mandate, that is the income tax department of the USA, is to make it easy for people to file returns. The more easy the answers are to find, fewer people call the call center helpline, meaning lower staff and costs. More people filing correctly means more revenue and lower review auditing costs. Okay. So now you can see that this is what it makes the life of the income tax department easy. Right now, you know that Infosys is having challenges because of the new system that it created. Now you know why so many people are dependent on better systems, and IBM or any other company which does a better job in helping the IRS do all this is actually understanding their clients' problems and solving it. Now, is there a similar situation for an opportunity like this in India? There is a tiny startup. This tiny startup is called Haq Darshak. Haq means right in Hindi, and Darshak is person who shows you who can see. So the person who helps you see how to get your rights. Basically, that's what they mean. Somebody who helps you get your rights and gives you visibility into them. So for them, if you were to look at the opportunity statement, we will improve the experience of ordinary citizens wanting to access government welfare schemes. Imagine students wanting to access, what should I call it? Scholarships, whether state scholarships or central government scholarships. Indus Valley Copper Vessel. For non-tech savvy or clueless about government individuals looking to get what is legitimately due to them. Why? Because today, as you know, if you want to renew your ration card or renew sometimes your driving license or whatever, it is very difficult to get to know which schemes are there, what form numbers, and what are the supporting documents to give it. And getting access to welfare particularly is downright difficult without having to visit the government office or, I don't want to say it. Now, why this will be good? Because we make it easy for people to access and hassle-free. More people getting the welfare amounts means more revenue and higher social impact. Now, this company, Haq Darshak, is a social impact organization. And many times when they first started, their thing was to get the end user to pay money to the Haq Darshak person at the application center. They have people who are women Haq Darshak, support agents. So this is support agents trained on a tech platform to provide welfare scheme support services to citizens. Earlier, they used to charge the citizens some money. Then they found that's a bit of a problem. So today they're getting money from corporate CSR or other philanthropies. Plus, sometimes they work with government departments. So these CSR corporates and they are the ones who pay for their employees or people in their community. And today, this company, last year, apparently did 6 crores and made a profit. And this year is going to do double that or more. Now, what they have now done is also diversified into helping MSMEs to get mudra loans, etc. And here they will charge a fee from the MSME. So you can see that there is actually a business opportunity right here in helping citizens and small businesses access government schemes. Interesting opportunity. Now, quickly, I'll run through feasibility analysis. There are 4 aspects to it: product and service feasibility, industry and market feasibility, organizational feasibility, which is team, structure, capability, etc. And finally, the financial feasibility. If you can say yes in all the 4 areas, it means you can very quickly proceed. If you say no in one or more areas, proceed with caution if you're pretty sure you can manage one of the issues. For example, financial feasibility, if you think you can swing the funding sooner than later and you're able to manage it, well, proceed, but go ahead carefully, amber light. Okay. What are the 3 important things to do? First and foremost, assumptions are the mother of all screw-ups. So check your assumptions. Second is validate them in the marketplace. No other place is as good as checking it in the marketplace. Third is keep showing progress. This is a word that you'll hear from investors particularly. What's your traction? Okay. The more you can show tick mark to in all these places, the better off you are at the early stage itself. And please understand that it is better to fail much earlier on and spend less time, energy, money than to fail much later on. This is the types of entrepreneurs you can just have a look at it. figure out which kind of person you are. If you're a very innovative sort, like a Musk or a Jobs, your ability to come up with ideas of different, completely disruptive nature is very different. But there's a huge scope in India, and especially in India, for the imitative entrepreneur. You might see so many of them. One fellow starts one thing, so many guys start that. So you can actually be a great imitator. So right now, for example, there's something called Potata, which is a prawn industries from Bangladesh, makes a little thin potato biscuit. Now, ITC has copied it. There are now other 2-3 other smaller guys have also started copying it. There are many other people who are in this category here. There's also another category, which is the drone entrepreneur. Bulk of a lot of MSMEs in India this. I have done auto ancillary accessory production. That's all I know. I can only do that. I will not change, blah, blah, blah. And then there is this fellow who's very cautious. Kodak, for example, moved to digital film too late. This is just for you to understand yourself. Please understand yourself as an entrepreneur, what style you have, because that's very critical in your ability to execute and to innovate. Very quickly, I'll tell you about business model innovations. One is called the long tail, which Amazon made brilliantly, which is in the area of music, books, movies, etc. This long tail is working brilliantly, this model. So look at business model innovations like these. Long tail is one innovation. The second thing is virtual goods. All these companies are virtual goods companies, and they're all growing dramatically. Of course, there will be contra views. I will not get into all of that. For example, Flipkart is still a loss-making company, but look at where it went finally. Bharat Matrimony is from Chennai. The largest e-commerce player till recently was IRCTC, a government company. And Dream11 is again growing and glowing. The other thing, which we'll talk about a little bit today, which is direct to consumer, especially popularized by the mobile phone companies. Look at online smartphone sales. 5 years ago, it was less than some 4-5%. 3 years ago, it was just a little over 25%. Now it's touching 40%. And most of these Chinese companies, especially after Motorola started it, are all experts in direct to consumer. Very interesting quiz question. What is common between Vivo, Oppo, and OnePlus? I'll give you the answer. All three are owned by the same company called BBK Electronics Corporation. Now, this is another new model, and you will get a little bit more understanding of this as we talk about. It's not like traditional businesses don't have niches. They also have niches. Mustafa created a brilliant company called ID, on one of the oldest products in India, which is idli and dosa batter. As he keeps saying, idli is the world's best breakfast. You take juices. Paper Boat has made almost a 200 crore company out of 235 plus crore company out of this juices in a peculiar form. Cookware, Wonder Chef was nothing. New company, barely 8-9 years old, and it is already touched 300-400 crores. The valuation is much higher. So you can get niches even in traditional business. It's only that you have to be savvy and canny in order to exploit it. Now, I'm going to stop sharing, and you're going to listen to an entrepreneur. I think I have fulfilled my mandate of trying to do it within 30 minutes. So I'm stopping my sharing, and I will ask you to look at Madhumita. Madhumita, over to you.
Thank you, sir. That was a really power-packed intro. So let me just go ahead and share my screen. Sure. So probably let me just go ahead and go full screen. So before I start out, I just want to highlight that I will be highlighting the kind of decisions that I had taken, not necessarily everybody's cup of tea, but hopefully it will give you a little bit of insight as to how I went about that journey. Specifically with regard to the framework that sir had just highlighted, I'd like to highlight the difference between an idea and an opportunity. So a little bit about me and my startup. What I do is I sell natural cookware. These are cookware that's made out of iron, cast iron, wood, and so on. The fundamental of it being healthy and really good to use. And this whole idea started back in 2015, where I really enjoy cooking. And unfortunately, I had heated some leftover food in the oven in a really bad plastic container. What came out was not tasty, to say the least. It was a very bad combination of plastic and potatoes. So that really woke me up, and I thought I'm supposed to change all my containers. Living in a city like Bombay, I felt it was hard to get these good replacements like clay kadais or iron dosa tawas and so on, or in a shop where no one really gave it a lot of attention. If I wanted a non-stick pan, it was readily available from the leading brands, whereas this wasn't given a lot of attention to. So that was the reason why I started even looking at this category. That was a moment where that idea came to my mind. And then I kept thinking about it and I kept seeing on other forums, there were a lot of people who were equally excited, who were equally questioning where they can get these products, but they didn't find any other reliable options. So that was the seed of the idea. The way that I saw it out as an opportunity was iterative. So this is what I just mentioned about the company, just a small brief. As I mentioned, we are a direct-to-consumer company. We sell natural cookware. We are an online-first company. The problem was basically that the cookware was really unhealthy. People did not know where to get it. And most of the stores, as you would have seen in most kitchenware stores, it's very unorganized and it's very fragmented, except certain categories like cooker, non-stick cookware, electronics, and so on. So we decided to launch a natural cookware brand, which focuses on the health and well-being of the customer. People have evolved, consumers have evolved in India. They're looking for products that are organic, which are safely made, that are packed very consciously. They're looking for brands that do good, be good, and create some health and wellness for them and their family. So that is where we came up with this solution. So, but this solution did not come overnight, and this is something that I would like to really put emphasis on. This is where I'd like to talk about the opportunity building. So this was just a problem that I had faced and then slowly found a solution for myself. But I felt that there would be a larger market. It was more of a gut related call. And then I didn't go ahead the next day and have a big bang approach. So it was very iterative in small steps. I started talking to customers, try to establish vendor network. Initially, these larger manufacturers did not take me in because I was talking like 10 pieces, 20 pieces, which was definitely not in their bag of offering. So one thing that it did teach me is to build slowly, iteratively, and never be ashamed to ask anything that we need. Generally, we would, really set ourselves back thinking that, oh, probably they'll not agree. I had to seek out at least 10 packaging manufacturers before I found one who was willing to give me in lots of 10. I said, hey, I'll get 100 pieces, but just give me 10 boxes per week. So it was a really rocky road, but those small steps got us there. So once you've got your idea, you need not go for a big bang approach. You can definitely iterate it. And while you iterate it, a very important step is to talk to your customers. So your customers are your be all and end all. So how do you find who are your customers? So that is also a journey in itself. You can find an hypothesis and say, hey, my customers are women, predominantly young women who are, say, 20 to 40 years of age, who make a certain income, they belong from certain cities, and you can test this out. So you can reach out to your customers, and today getting online is really easy. But for the first 2 years, my co-founder and I, we did a lot of events, especially in malls, tech parks, housing complexes. What this did is gave us an opportunity to talk to hundreds of customers in a day, the kind of words that they use, the kind of solutions that they were looking for. And once we had that in place, we were able to cater to the customers with the right kind of products. And that done, we started testing out through a B2B channel. We started distributing through offline stores, and we saw good traction there, but it wasn't at the pace that we needed to. So here again, we made a change. We thought, let's go online because we were bootstrapped at that point. With the kind of funds that we had, we thought it will give us good impetus and ability to scale. So we've updated our model. We were always open to change and listening to what our customers want. So we changed that. And that was about the time we had the opportunity to meet and work with the Chennai Angels. And it was at the right time because we had got our product market fit right. We had figured out a business model. And finally, we had money that will help us fuel our growth. So this is a little bit on our early stages. It is not easy. It's a lot of really heavy lifting work, quite literally. We used to carry the products to the events. The website I did by scratch by myself. I'm a very big DIY, I profess and swear by DIY, do everything by yourself. So later, at least some portions of it. So later when you have a team or someone you're outsourcing it to, you'll have a sense of how it's going and you'll be able to manage it better. All entrepreneurs have been everything in their team. We started out really small. We hired only a couple of employees. And I think for the first 2-3 years, we had under 10 employees. And then we slowly took in interns. So you can always do it at your own pace. Looking back now, what started in a 50 square feet veranda where customers used to, just come in and shop. And we started to do quite a bit of events, and then we sold offline. We decided to go online. We launched Angels. This was the right time for us when we met Chennai Angels as well, and we were able to raise a couple of rounds, which has really, kept us in the growth momentum. With all this journey, and there are some learnings that I've had in the past 5.5 years. One very important learning is the iterative approach. So generally, I do not know if it's a B-school mentality or a very Indian mentality that, before you start anything, when I started, I needed some space. My father was like, why don't we buy this? Why don't we buy that? I didn't even buy racks for several months. And I managed with interns and, part-timers for a very long time. So what that allows you is that it allows you to make affordable mistakes. Because even if you are one of the lucky few who is able to raise a lot of money in the get-go when you start itself at an idea stage, it will still give you the option of using the money at the right time for the right things. And customer conversations are key. As I mentioned, that's something that we always get back to, because at the end of the day, they are your biggest investors, and they make your company what it is. Always listen to them, check with them what's going, how is it going. And it's really hard as a founder to take negative feedback, especially from your customer, because you worked day and night. But that's something you learn to do over a period of time. You learn to take feedback with humility and keep improving. You tell them, hey, I'm sorry that it wasn't up to your expectations, but we'll go ahead and do this for you. And another thing that I've really learned is to do improvements at 1% at a time. We all think that there will be some big bang change and overnight things will improve, which is not necessarily so. Especially in a startup, we do 100 things and 99 of them would fail. So it's very important to keep making those new initiatives, keep making those improvements towards your greater goal. And you will definitely find that one of these improvements will be a winner and will really change the game for you. And there will be hard times, and these hard times will be very challenging in different ways. It's not necessarily only related to funds. It could be related to people. It could be related to a lot of regulatory change and so on. Even COVID situation could be hard depending on your business model. It's very important to show up and be there and spend more time to solve it. So for that, you need to be mentally and physically fit. That's really, really primary. And being funded or bootstrapped is a choice. There's a lot of glamour and press coverage for funding. If that's something that is suited to you and your business model, more power to you. But bootstrap is a very traditional way, and it has worked well for a lot of people. And if that's the way you want to go, then that's your choice too. So do not, get sidelined by the media. I mean, there are very lovely people like Mr. Chandu Nair who would be, really good angel investors and who will, add a lot of value to you and your company. But that is a choice that you have to make depending on what you have ahead. So with respect to the future, what we are looking at is direct to consumer is, booming right now. Customers have had a decade of experience shopping online. They are beyond cheap deals. They're looking for good service, good product. They're looking for their wellness and the wellness of their family. We plan to keep working in this direction, keep making our customers happy, and be a leading brand, home solutions brand in the D2C space. And we will fail. We will have a lot of hiccups along the way, but it'll definitely be fun and a really good journey. So with that, I give it back to Chandu sir so that he can walk you through, how it would apply to you better.
Thank you, Madhumita. And, so that we don't again change this thing. So you can continue from there. Thank you very much.
Sure,
So
I'll do that.
yeah. So what are the key, as Mr. Amitabh Bachchan says in Kaun Banega Crorepati, lock kiya jaye, guys. So first is look at everything from the customer's point of view. And so basically from the customer's point of view, ask this question: what is in it for me? How exactly is this going to benefit me as a customer? So if you do anything from that point of view, I think your ability to get it to identify the right opportunity is pretty good. Second, mere Me Too clones of foreign ideas won't work. You need a lot of adaptation at least. For example, e-commerce in India needed cash on delivery, for example. Okay, because why people in India don't trust something they never used to trust. Touchwood, the things have changed, and that's why Indus Valley kind of companies are able to succeed. But otherwise, they wanted COD, cash on delivery. That's a powerful example in India. Why a mere and that requires a substantive change in payment mechanisms. More important than the ability to talk, which I've been doing today a lot, it's the listening which is powerful. But what I've seen as an entrepreneur myself, as an investor, and also working with the fantastic entrepreneurs like Jagdish and Madhumita, is, what they do and what good entrepreneurs do is never assume. Anything that is being stated as a hypothesis is validated using actual live data from the ground. So, which is why what is good today is keep looking at an MVP, minimum viable product, iterate, test it, iterate, check, repeat, and keep doing this. The more you're able to do it, you'll figure out what should be your products. And finally, how do you make sure that you have a continuous sustainable differentiator vis-a-vis competition? So in sum, if you want to hear opportunity knock at the door, you first need to be near the door. Okay, with this, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, I understand there are some young ones also in the audience. Thank you very much. And I believe this very strongly, which is a message I like to give entrepreneurs. What matters most is how you see yourself, and then you'll see the right opportunity. Thank you very much.